EQ video tip. I'm your host, Eric Forsetter. So glad that you can join us today. We've got a great episode and lots of information. Let's jump into the goals before we get to this episode. Back. You're probably wondering, what's on tap today? Great question. And in fact, we're going to learn about how to ask useful questions. So our first lesson, but kind of way to get into this, is from Bredal Graves, who works at Zapier. Now, her son schooled her in geometry, and he's only 5 years old. Hard to believe. But he kept telling her that a 3D cylinder is actually a rectangle. And she kept saying, that's not right. And she'd respond with, well, maybe there's more context, or maybe you misheard her. And they went back and forth in arguing. And that's not the right way to ask a useful question. In fact, her son got so upset that he said, you know what? I don't think you want to be my mommy anymore. Because what he was hearing was, you're wrong and I'm right because I'm the parent. Or I have more experience than you, so there's no way that you could be right. I'm just trying to appease you. Luckily, her son felt safe enough to voice his own feelings, but sometimes in the workplace, you just can't. For those of you wondering, here's a rectangle, and now we turned it into that 3D cylinder. Let's jump in and get some more questions. We're going to talk about ways to ask questions that are more effective. Josh Kaufman, an award-winning and best-selling author on books on business and EQ, gives us several of these tips. For example, he says, ask for information. Here's an example. I'm interested in learning more about A, and I found you via B. Are you the best person to ask about this? The key is he's asking information-seeking questions. And what do we mean by that? We're specific about the information we're trying to obtain. At the same time, we're giving context by referencing why we're contacting this person and how we found their information. And we're making it easier for this person to refer you to the best resource possible or to actually answer the question for us, both saving us and them time. Tip number 2, ask for clarification. Based on our conversation about A, it sounds like B is the case. Is that correct? Here are the keys. It includes a short summary of the topic and the context. It sounds like leaves room for clarification without being confrontational. And is that correct? Make sure that it's clear and concise, but also direct and polite. Tip number 3, ask for help. Nobody likes to do that, but it's a good thing to try. I'm trying to A, and I'm having trouble so far. So far I've tried B, I've tried C, and D with these results, which are E. Now I'm stuck. Any guidance? The key for asking assistance is to be clear and precise about what you're doing. Give context, including what you've tried so far, which makes it clear that you're doing your own work and not asking the person to solve your own problems. Any guidance or what should I try next sets up the recipient as the expert, and it doesn't transfer all the responsibility to them from you. Here's another tip. How to ask advice. For example, I'm working on A. My priorities are B, C, and D, but I'm also considering E. I'm not sure it's the best option. If you have a moment, I'd appreciate your thoughts. If not, no worries. Thank you. Here are the keys there. Be clear and precise about what you're trying to achieve. Be clear about your priorities and include any trade-offs you might know. The recipient, while you may think they can read your mind, they can't. So they need to understand your perspective and make it clear you're just asking for advice and perspective, not for them to decide for you. And as always, give the recipient an easy way out. You're asking for a favor. So of course, be polite. Mind your P's and Q's, please. And of course, thank you. Our last tip, how to ask for agreement. For example, based on the conversation that we had about X, we decided Y is the best solution. The next step is Z. Agreed? If so, let's get started. Here are some keys to that. Use this question to get important decisions or agreements in writing. Spell it out in terms of the decision in as much detail as possible. And of course, By saying agreed at the end, it leaves room for the recipient to voice disagreement. And of course, if you say, I'll get started right away, it gives a useful sense of urgency and makes it clear that any clarifications and changes need to be made before we get started. We covered a lot of tips today, so thank you for your time. Here's a quick recap before we conclude. So that concludes our EQ video tip for today. Try incorporating some of these tips into your daily routine. But remember, use what works best for you and personalize it for yourself. Thank you always to our great research team for providing us with some great tips today. As always on EQ Video Tip, we want to end with gratitude. So thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. Here are some resources that you can use if you want more information on EQ going forward. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you.